As the warrior planet, Mars began its retrograde in the ego-driven, fiery sign of Leo and opposed Pluto in late December, early January, things may have gotten heated. Now is the time to cool it down as Mars retrogrades into the water sign of Cancer on Monday, January 6th, encouraging us to connect with our hearts, process anger, and express our feelings. Let's take a closer look and break it down for all 12 signs. My name is Anastasia. I'm a traditional Western astrologer working in whole sign house system and specializing in natal, relationship, and predictive readings. If you enjoy my work and want to take a couple of seconds to support me, please leave me a like, a comment, subscribe, and press the notification bell. Watch more of my content or say thank you by buying me a tea, a coffee, a present, a token of appreciation. I am thankful for that. Before we dive in, if you're looking for more guidance, you can find all of my reading options at anastasiadoesastrology.com. Until the end of the month, for a limited time only, you can save on my year ahead readings, $20 on the in-person consultation or $40 on the recorded reading. Information is in the description. On my website, you can also find a recording of the webinar I did with Rux, breaking down all of the horoscopes for 2025. Each sign got approximately 20 minutes of screen time. So if you want to find out what's ahead for you, pick up the link to it, download it, get it on my website. Additionally, pick up my 2025 astrology planner. It is full of goodness. It has space to set your chart, to write your chart. You can learn about astrology as you go. There's lots of space to put your to-do list, learn about transits, lunar phases, lunar signs, set your intentions. Any new and full moon gets a special page where you can prepare, as well as it has all of the important dates you want to be aware of. And I highly recommend my Mars Cazimi candles and oils because these capture Mars in Scorpio. Mars in Scorpio is Mars in rulership. When it's Cazimi, it's in a perfect conjunction with the sun. It's empowered, blessing you with courage, level energy, more strategic approach, and success when it comes to your physical ambitions, working out, setting intentions, starting projects, and reaching your goals. Highly recommend this for anyone born with their Mars in Cancer, Taurus, or Libra, signs of fall and detriment. If your natal Mars is retrograde, or if your natal Mars is in the 8th or 12th houses, if it's conjunct, square, or opposite Saturn, all of those create a bit more of a complicated energy when it comes to expressing anger. I have recently had a client with Mars retrograde in Virgo, and as we were talking, I realized how I think it's a very, like, most women probably struggle with this, maybe more than men, but of course, men are sort of more encouraged to be like direct or assertive, and women are often encouraged to sit still and look pretty. And so I think expressing anger, that's why I like this candle, because my Mars is in the 12th house and it's conjunct the sun, which means it's combust. It's not quite Cazimi. So I think like learning to express frustration, not hide it, but not be too forceful is like a very difficult lesson, and it's important for all of us to learn. So anyways, Mars Cazimi, great candle. So Mars comes back into Cancer. It enters Cancer on January 6th and will stay here until April 18th. So we are looking at 3.5 months of Mars in Cancer. It is retrograde until February 23rd, so more than half of it, or approximately half of this time, is Mars retrograde. We've had Mars in Cancer before, between September 4th and November 3rd, so you may see some of the repeats of those topics, especially October topics, because that's approximately when Mars went into the shadow period. Mars in Cancer is in its fall, meaning that it's a sign that is connected to vulnerable, weak mothers, women. It's a sign of nurturance. So when you put the fighter with lots of blades in, it's a fighter with blades in my mind, but like any fighter in let's say he's like in a nursery, he's more likely to create a mess, right? So sometimes Mars in Cancer, people who are born with it, they tend to suppress anger because they're like conflict averse, but then the frustration builds and it backfires and it ends up like hurting people around them. So when Mars is retrograde, like I said, we've had Mars retrograding in Leo from December 6th until January 6th, and Mars opposed Pluto between late December and early January. And so there has been a lot of issues around like ego, me, my things, my recognition, my space, my ambition, my desire, right? So on some level, it's quite nice to have Mars come back into the more emotionally driven Cancer and maybe cool down this like me, and focus a little bit on like us and emotional sort of maturity. But at the same time, it's really important here to like express feelings instead of suppressing them. And so I think as Mars comes back into Cancer, we're getting a chance to examine how we handle anger and how we express frustration, and perhaps find healthy outlets, and find also like, you know, Mars in Cancer, and we're going to have a full moon in Cancer on January 13th, conjunct Mars. It will bring up all of these topics around, you know, self-care, around emotions, around expressing things, also women, vulnerable people, children, protecting those in need, right? And so we're very much like, I think we're getting to a place where we have to speak up about things that bother us personally and things that bother us collectively. And, you know, in the US, we're coming on we have a new president, and the president is gonna start sort of stepping into his power. And so I feel like there might be maybe more issues surrounding women, like I said, you know, pregnancies, children, all of that kind of stuff, motherhood, even like elderly, anyone who is like weak and vulnerable. Like, yeah, I think I don't usually talk about politics, you know that, but I think like there's a lot of issues that we need Mars in Cancer for, because Mars in Cancer, while there is, you know, the shadow side is of course like going through ups and downs energetically and maybe running a risk of hurting vulnerable people if you haven't expressed frustration, but it's also a warrior for a worthy cause. Like if you direct Mars in Cancer in the right way, it could be like this mama bear, not the one that's killing everyone, but like mama bear that's fighting for the cubs and standing up for the weak, and like it makes people born with it make really good social workers. And I think like they're really good at defending the weak and vulnerable. And so yeah, pay attention, look back at October, think of what was coming up for you. It could be very personal, it doesn't need to be about the world and politics, but it could be more about like what is worth investing your energy into, and how are you dealing with frustration? How can you be better about expressing your feelings? What do you do when, you know, when somebody irritates you? Do you lash out? Do you suppress it? Do you express it in a healthy way? Do you talk about it? Like, what do you do? And how can you process irritation, anxiety, even your frustration with the state of the world in a healthy way, and control things that you can control versus get anxious and worry about things that you cannot? So processing a lot of inner, you know, frustration, finding healthy outlets, figuring out what your passions are calling you towards, expressing your passions in constructive ways. All of those themes will be strong right now. And I'm going to give you the degrees real quick. So Mars will move from 29 degrees into 17 degrees Cancer. So this is especially important for anyone with planets. Let's give it 3-degree orb, let's say from 14 degrees cardinal signs, Cancer, Capricorn, Aries, Libra, into 29 degrees, basically all the way until the end of those signs. And we are continuing with the retrograde. We're slightly shifting focus. So let's take a look at the 12 signs and give you some insights on what this might be about. Before we dive in, take advantage of my year ahead special. You can save $20 on the in-person consultation with the coupon code mentioned in the description, or save $40 on the recorded reading. This lasts until January, until the end of January. And on my website, you can also, in the shop, you can also pick up a recording of the 2025 webinar I did with Rox to find out what is ahead for your sign in 2025. So for the lovely Aries rising, Mars is retrograding back into your 4th house. It's coming from the 5th. So in December, you may have wondered what is pleasure for you, what makes you happy. And you maybe looked at the topics involving children. You maybe considered your romantic relationship, and as Mars is retrograding into the 4th house, you're starting to connect that to your place of living. So you may feel a need for change in the home. Maybe you are getting ready to, maybe you need a bigger home because your child is growing up and they need more space. Maybe you need to move because your child needs to be closer to better schools. There might be certain relationships with family that need to be looked at, as well as relationship with anger for all of us, right? But for you too, relationships with family, with anger. There might be childhood wounds that haven't been processed that are affecting your life, affecting your sense of self-worth that you need to deal with. And of course, with Mars retrograding in the 4th, I think it can also be about making home improvements and realizing what in your home needs to be changed in order for you to perhaps have more fun, because we are moving from the 5th into the 4th. How has this retrograde been? You are Mars ruled, so I would imagine that it's probably affecting you more than maybe some other signs. Please share down below. If you're looking for more guidance, you have questions, a one-on-one consultation is a better fit for. Book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. I do relationship, natal, and predictive readings. If you are a Taurus rising, Mars is retrograding from your 4th into the 3rd. And here you're looking at how do you handle scheduling issues? How do you handle siblings and neighbors being unreasonable? How do you handle maybe disagreements in your neighborhood? There might be some type of drama around maybe even your house. Maybe you're expanding your home or changing something and your co-op board is not aligned with it, and so you're having to deal with these like logistical talks. Mars in the 3rd house is bringing up topics from September, October, and maybe you're having to revisit the same conversations around your schedule, having to like pull back and maybe step back, do a little less could be important here, especially if you're feeling like you've been irritated by everything that's going on. Communication, siblings, right? Talking to siblings about things that you've already been talking about at the end of 2024. Solving any unresolved conflicts, maybe revisiting the past and having to, it's a very logistical house, right? But you're moving from the 4th into the 3rd. So logistics could be connected to like a family business, a home situation, your neighborhood, your living space, your childhood. So it's an opportunity to like, I think, look at your immediate environment and find a way to declutter and sort of pull things to the side so that you have more freedom, right, to breathe and to move. Let me know how has it been? Are you noticing it? Mars rules your partner's house as well. Has your partner been more affected by it? If you're looking for more guidance, book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. I do natal, relationship, predictive readings. You can also pick up my Mars Kazemi candle, perfect for dealing with this kind of chaotic, irritating energy, or my 2025 planner. It's a good time. The year has just started, so you want to get ready. If you are a Gemini rising, Mars is retrograding from your 3rd into the 2nd house. And so the retrograde started in the 3rd, and it could have brought up questions around your skills, around your knowledge, around your time and your schedule. You may have been asking what kind of skills are more lucrative, what is worth investing into, what is worth learning more about, what is worth maybe letting go, right? What kind of pursuits are frustrating more so than creating abundance in your life. And so that now that Mars is retrograding into the 2nd house, you're shifting more to look at your priorities and your finances. And so if you have realized recently that you have this passion project that you need to invest into, Mars retrograding in the 2nd house could be about committing to it and investing into it, or doing research, right? It could be about consulting financial advisors, trying to figure out better ways of allocating your resources. There might be more financial matters because you're suddenly required to spend on something, so it's not a great time to like make rash financial decisions, because you may realize that your money needs to go elsewhere. Ultimately, to me, this is about figuring out what you value, and then with that 2nd, 3rd house connection, like what is worth spending on, what is worth committing to, what is worth investing in. If I said it already, but like, you know, what are your priorities, and then based on that, all of the financial matters should fall into place. How has it been? Has Mars retrograde been irritating? Have you already noticed financial matters coming up? If you're looking for more guidance, book a reading at AnastasiaDoesAstrology.com. We can look at your natal chart, your year coming up, or your relationship. If you are a Cancer rising, Mars is retrograding from your 2nd into your 1st house. And so for the last month or so, with Mars retrograde in your 2nd house, you may have been looking at your money. You may have been wondering about your priorities, about your sense of self-worth, right? And questioning, what do you need to do to feel more confident, to feel more comfortable, to have more? A lot of times our finances and our outward abundance is connected to our inner sense of happiness, right? If you believe in yourself, if you know you deserve it, then your outside bank account is full of cash, right? According to that, Elon Musk probably has the highest sense of self-worth. But, you know, sometimes they come from money, etc. So you've been questioning those things, money and self-worth. And now that Mars retrogrades into the 1st house, you're starting to realize that you need to make changes to yourself, right? So it could be about taking care of your health so that you can be more active and can follow your goals more, you know, in a determined way. It could be about exercising more, taking better care of your body, because sometimes Mars retrograde in the 1st house can bring up some unresolved health issues. It could be about figuring out a good way to express your initiative, because sometimes, you know, Mars retrograde can bring up a lot of sort of build up tension and frustration. And so you're learning how to express it. You're learning to, based on those questions you've asked about your priorities and values, you're figuring out who you are and what is worth fighting for. So in the immediate, for the next month and a half, you may feel like you're sort of more pressured. There's a lot more to do. There's maybe not a lot of help. And so ultimately, through all of this, you're once again kind of figuring out, what do you need to take care of? What do you need to release? And where do you need to be more assertive? Where do you need to be more brave? And where do you need to build your sense of self-worth? For more guidance, book a reading at AnastasiaDoesAstrology.com. You can save on my year ahead consultations or get a natal or relationship chart reading on there. For the lovely Leo rising, Mars is returning into your 12th house. So for about a month, it has been retrograde in your 1st. Meaning you maybe felt some type of stagnation, maybe you've dealt with more pressures on you, you may have questioned what you're doing in life and felt a little bit stuck, or sort of like your progress was thwarted and limited somehow. And now that Mars is retrograding in your 12th house, you're becoming more clear on how your own beliefs may be self-defeating. You're sort of like going away from the visible realm and going into the invisible realm, and you're starting to become more aware how your own perception, how your beliefs, and how your fears are standing in your own way. And so this could be your opportunity to connect with a spiritual belief, to explore yoga, to explore meditation, to journal, to talk to a therapist, to address any sort of fears and self-limiting beliefs that you have. There might also be, with this transit, there might also be a sense that you have some imaginative projects that you are revisiting, that you're maybe taking a step back to work on something in solitude. It's also a pretty good time to get away, to go into a faraway place, to retreat, to go to a yoga retreat or some type of ashram, learn about Reiki, and connect with, like I said, more spiritual sources, spiritual light sources. Let me know, how has it been? How has Mars retrograde in the first house felt? And are you ready for it to go into the 12th? And if you're looking for more guidance, book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. My year ahead readings you can currently save on. Information is in the description, or pick up a natal or relationship reading. If you are a Virgo rising, Mars is retrograding from your 12th into 11th. So the retrograde started in your 12th house, encouraging you to look at your self-defeating tendencies and potentially examine, where are you doubting yourself? Where are you selling yourself short? Because Leo is your 12th house, and so your self-defeating, like, dark house could be connected to not believing in your own greatness, right? So Mars retrograding there could have encouraged a little bit more self-understanding. And now that Mars is going into your 11th house, big questions around friendships come up, right? If you believe in yourself, do your friends believe in you? Are your friendships all sort of happy? There might be, with Mars retrograding in the 11th house and Mars being in Cancer, there might be some sort of like passive aggression. There might be some misunderstanding, manipulation, some shadows in friendships that you need to address and talk about. There might be some, it can also be, it's the house of hopes and dreams for the future. So I think you're also perhaps reviewing your goals and rethinking some of your projects. You're maybe bringing back an old project and giving it another go. Maybe releasing some of the projects if you've been feeling like you're just taking on too much, right? Jupiter is in Gemini. Cancer is the sign of Jupiter's exaltation. So with Jupiter in your house of career, there's probably a lot going on. So Mars retrograde, I think, is encouraging you to clarify your goals and to, in the process, figure out which connections are supportive, which connections are professionally advantageous, and maybe it's even like a question of like, who can you reach to, and who can you ask for help to better sort of build yourself and have like a happier, successful career. If you're looking for more guidance, book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. We can talk about your natal chart, year coming up, or your relationship, and pick up my 2025 astrology planner. It's a good time to get it. Get it now. If you are the charming Libra rising, Mars is retrograding from your 11th, leaving your 11th and going into your 10th. So the last month with Mars retrograde in the 11th could have brought some uncertainty and big questions around your community, around your hopes and dreams, and around your friendships. Because we're going from the 11th into the 10th, it feels professional. It feels like you were asking about associates and people who can be supportive of you. Maybe you've been thinking about what your brand's underlying principle is, or like, what is your brand bringing to the world if you are a business person, or like I said, maybe questioning friendships or having to do some networking, rethink some connections professionally and personally. And now that Mars comes back into the 10th house, you're having to deal with turnarounds, frustrations, irritations professionally. So maybe as you've been questioning your dreams, you're now starting to think about your career. You're maybe wondering whether you are in the right place, whether you feel emotionally aligned with what you're doing, whether you feel happy with your bosses. Mars retrograde can bring a little bit more tension. Look back at September, October when Mars was in Cancer, especially October. What was coming up for you? Have you felt stressed about something? Have you felt maybe like, I don't know, what kind of issues, what kind of projects were you working on? Because Mars retrograde will bring those energies back around, encouraging you to evaluate how you express yourself, how you address conflicts in the workplace, and how you, like, also, you know, what are you fighting for? It might be a good time to pivot and reorient yourself and maybe like shift your attention to something that is more exciting for you. Please share how this resonates, and if you're looking for more guidance, book a reading at Anastasia.astrology.com. For the beautiful Scorpio rising, Mars has began its retrograde in your 10th house, and now it's moving into your 9th house. So here we're connecting the house of career, status, reputation, your public life with the house of beliefs, philosophy, religion, education, travel, writing, publishing, and law. So the retrograde started in the 10th house of career, and potentially you started questioning your professional life, maybe your direction, maybe just a sense of whether you are in the right place. You could have been revisiting an old job or going back to an old position, or maybe dealing with old projects. And so now that Mars is retrograding into the 9th house, there might be certain education matters that you need to address. Let's say you need to pass a test in order to upgrade your career. 9th house, also the place of faraway lands. So you're maybe also questioning whether you are in the right location for your professional life. So moving is a possibility. 9th house being the house of beliefs. I think it's also, you're also kind of questioning whether your job aligns with what you are standing behind and what is important to you. And because Mars is going back into Cancer, it could be a very emotional time, and sort of Mars is your chart ruler, right? Like, how has it been for you? Have you noticed that the retrograde is irritating, maybe extra irritating because you are ruled by Mars? But I think this is your opportunity to revisit your beliefs, to ask yourself, what are you ultimately willing to fight for? What kind of goals and principles are primary in your life? Primary? Main principles? What are your core principles, right? And so then take professional action based on that, as well as needing to revisit education, retake some exams, refile some legal paperwork, maybe deal with some legal issue. All of that is very much highlighted here. I'm curious to know, how has the retrograde affected you? Please let me know. And if you're looking for more guidance, book a reading at Anastasia.astrology.com. You can save on the year ahead consultation information in the description, or pick up a natal or relationship reading. Highly recommend my Mars Kazemi candle. It is Mars in Scorpio, which is your rising sign, and could be helpful for dealing with frustration, irritation, being more strategic, having more even energy levels, and finding courage to pursue your goals and to reach them, to not give up. For the cheerful Sagittarius rising, Mars is retrograding from your 9th into the 8th house. And so here you're looking at your relationships with other people and at your give and take dynamics. So Mars began its retrograde in the 9th house in December. It was retrograding in your 9th, and you could have been looking at your goals, your beliefs, your sense of self, right? Leo is your 9th house. So you may be wondering whether you're getting enough recognition, whether you're in the right place, whether you need to get more education or you need to move. It could have brought up sort of important philosophical questions. And now that Mars is retrograding in the 8th, you're maybe looking at more like less visible things, like 8th house. Of course, 9th house is also a very spiritual place, like your beliefs are not always visible. But 8th house is very energetic. It's the house of exchanges with other people. Sometimes it's a visible house because we exchange money, but it can also be about energy, about agreements, sort of unspoken promises and things like that. And so moving from the 9th into the 8th, it of course can also be about finances. There could be some type of a sense that you're dealing with people owing you money. You're dealing with maybe inheritance. You're having to re-sign some contracts, renegotiate some matters. You're maybe having to hunt down people who owe you money, sort of trying to reach out to them. Opportunities to renegotiate your mortgage, refinance your mortgage, renegotiate some kind of contract are all coming up here. So like tangible moves around money, applying for student loans, getting student loans, paying debts. But it can also be because 8th house is such like an energetic house. I also wonder if here you're questioning fairness in relationships. You're looking at your relationships with other people, romantic, family, spiritual connections with other people, and wondering which connections are worth pursuing versus which ones are not. So Mars retrograde in the 8th can help you connect with those deep feelings and figure out where are you giving too much and what do you need to give more of your attention. So it's like a great opportunity, I think, to sever some unhealthy engagements and pay off some debts, karmic and literal, as well as maybe prioritize some other relationships. Maybe you start to prioritize your healing or your spirituality. You're starting to commit to more invisible sources of energetic support. Please share how this resonates. If you're looking for more guidance, book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. You can save in my year ahead reading, or you can pick up a natal or a relationship reading. For the beautiful Capricorn rising, Mars is retrograding from the 8th into the 7th house. And this one is an interesting one because it's like the retrograde started in the 8th, and you may have been wondering about financial questions. You may have been wondering about your relationships with other people. You may have been assessing how fair things are. Leo energy could have encouraged you to stand up for yourself, to speak up for your goals and your priorities. And now that Mars retrogrades into the 7th house, it becomes a little bit more obvious, right? The conflicts and the irritation shifts into the house of relationships. And so on some level, I think it becomes more obvious and it encourages you to address things. So if something doesn't feel fair in your relationship, Mars retrograde in the 7th is a great time to bring it into the open and try to be fair and patient. It's a good time to reassess how you handle things, right? Like, do you tend to shy away from conflict and then be passive aggressive? Or do you tend to not express it until you blow up, right? You go from 0 to 100. So examining relationships. You may also be dealing with an ex, someone in the past coming into your life and sort of irritating you and making you feel frustrated. And so an opportunity to clear the air may be present. Renegotiating contracts, re-signing deals, reviewing agreements, and trying, I think, ultimately to kind of create more balance is what I see here. If you're looking for more guidance, book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. You can save on my year ahead readings until the end of the month. Information is in the description, or you can pick up natal or relationship reading. I also highly recommend my Mars Kazemi candle because it captures a strong Mars in rulership. Powerful for starting projects, committing, being more strategic, reaching your physical goals in terms of like exercise, strength, stamina, and things like that. For Aquarius rising, Mars is retrograding from your 7th into the 6th. So with Mars retrograde in your 7th house in December, there could have been relationship matters that came under review. Maybe your professional contracts or your romantic relationship. Maybe you've dealt with some conflicts, some disagreements, some power struggles there, especially in late December, early January, is Mars opposed Pluto. So now as Mars retrogrades in your 6th house, it's kind of interesting because Mars is in its joy in the 6th house. So it could give you the boost to actually problem solve. But it is Mars in its fall, and it is Mars retrograde. So it can still create a bit of passive-aggressive ups and downs energetically, perhaps. But I think it's connecting your house of relationships with your house of like hard work, service, problem-solving, health. And so it makes me wonder if there is something logistical that you need to solve in a relationship. If maybe something, felt like aggravating, irritating, and with Mars entering the 6th, you just need to like restructure things. You need to figure out a better workflow with your partner. You need to maybe rethink how you pay bills, or you do laundry, or you handle sort of buying groceries. There might be matters around work, matters around health. Let's say you have a kid together and you need to figure out who takes the kid to the doctor when the kid is sick, and like how you address work. So like there might be a lot of interesting ways to solve sort of health matters, as well as I wonder for some of you, maybe there is a sense that you not taking care of your health is affecting your relationship, or your partner not taking care of their health is affecting the relationship. So maybe a good way to work through conflicts you have in a relationship is to get active together and to get physical together. So it's quite an interesting time where you can work with this transit in a productive way to problem solve and to direct your frustration constructively, right? Like if anywhere, I think 6th house can be quite constructive. Just make sure you're not like overworking yourself, and watch out for being passive aggressive. Please share. Have you noticed drama with Mars being retrograde? If you're looking for more guidance, book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. I'd be happy to look at your year coming up, your relationship, or your natal chart, and pick up my 2025 planner. It's perfect. Finally, if you are a Pisces rising, Mars is retrograding from your 6th into the 5th. So for a while, for about a month, Mars has been retrograde in your 6th house, and you could have dealt with conflicts at work, you could have dealt with overwhelm, stress, some type of confusion, uncertainty, maybe even some health issues. And now that Mars is retrograding into your 5th house, you are starting to look at potentially creating a better balance in your life. You're starting to realize that life is not all about work, that it's also about pleasure. You're starting to realize that your work life and your health affects your romantic life, potentially affects your sex life. So there's like an interesting connection between those two houses, because like 5th house is very playful and 6th house is very labor heavy. And so I think Mars retrograding from like the labor heavy house into a more playful house could be helpful. It could definitely like encourage you to maybe relax a little bit, to slow down, to take the pull away from work. It can also be the time when you are addressing some type of creative blockages. You're dealing with some kind of matters involving children, involving health. Maybe you're revisiting some creative projects, some passion projects. You may be dealing with an ex knocking on your door and trying to steal your energy. Be wary of the exes coming back into your life, because most times they only come back to mess it up. So please share how this resonates. Have you noticed Mars retrograde being frustrating as is? And if you're looking for more guidance, visit anastasiadoesastrology.com. Take advantage of my year ahead special. It only is available until the end of January. And pick up my 2025 webinar live video that I did with Rox on my website to find out what's ahead for your rising sign. It's an in-depth video with horoscopes dedicated to each sign. Check it out. And thank you for being here. As always, thank you for supporting me. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. Leave me a like, a comment. I appreciate all of those things. And I will see you in the next video. I hope your year is off to a good start so far. Talk to you soon. Bye.